Chelsea Football Club have reported 3 cases of corona within their playing staff and match stage staff ahead of Everton's trip to Stamford Bridge. This comes as Manchester United report more cases emerging from Carrington. Brentford have called for there to be a circuit breaker of sorts for the Premier League to be stopped in the short term. And there are multiple clubs asking for games to be cancelled and postponed this weekend to save the Christmas fixture lists. More and more cases seem to be growing. There are a lot of tests that are not showing up straight away. There's lots to delve into on this, but could we see the Premier League stopped even just for a short period of time to ensure the continuity of the games moving forward? Or do you feel that squads have first teams, reserves, and youth academies for a reason, and they should be made to play these games irrespective? I want your views and I want your opinions on all these breaking stories that are coming out today. Smash that like and share button. We're going to open up the lines for you to have your say. This is the Done Deal Show. Let's go, people. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Good afternoon to each and every single one of you. Lots of talk and chat across social media this morning in relation to further confirmation of positive COVID-19 tests. 3 at Chelsea have been confirmed. 3 players have tested positive ahead of the clash. As it stands right now, the game is going ahead. There have been no calls from either party as of yet to look to slow this game down. But as Nizar Kinsella has said, this situation could change. We saw yesterday the Watford game, Watford versus Burnley, was called off just 2.5 hours before kickoff. Leicester City are trying again today to have their game with Tottenham Hotspur postponed. Manchester United may be putting in further claims today and further appeals today to have their game with Brighton postponed on Saturday due to further players testing positive. Players that tested negative just 2 days ago. Tottenham still with their issues as well. Brentford today confirming 13 cases at their club, also wanting a circuit breaker to come in play for the Premier League to be stopped in the short term so clubs can get a hold and a grip of this situation. Someone said the Spurs game is off. There I go. I was literally prepping for this show and I didn't know. That has now been confirmed. The last time I checked, that game was on. So I apologize for that. That game is now off. I'm not overtly surprised. I'm not overtly shocked by that news. I swear when I checked about 20 minutes ago, it was on. But maybe I missed that piece of news, so I apologize. The Leicester game has been called off. Is that 3 or 4 games in all competitions that Tottenham have now missed? We're getting to a point where, not that I want it, not that I'm calling for it. I want my team back playing football. But it does feel like a circuit breaker, some type of break in play is going to eventually become inevitable. And the reason why it's important is this, and I would say this about the Chelsea game. Let me say this about the Chelsea game for a moment. It may only be 3 players. Fingers crossed, God willing, those players have no symptoms. Them and their families are fine. The problem you have is some players are going to test negative, but they might actually be positive. This has happened at Man United. This has happened to me personally in the last week. People I was around told me they had COVID. I tested myself. I was fine. Carried on as normal. Did another test because they were like, you better check again because lots of us have got it. I was negative. Then I started getting symptoms. Went and had a PCR test. Tested positive. So the point is at the clubs, the flow tests are part of it. If someone says, I'm fine, and they turn up to training or they go to the game, but it turns out they have it, The clubs have got to get a grip of this. It does appear that most clubs right now, not failing. That's the wrong word for it. It's not about a blame game. This is just trying to get this under control because it could have it's the butterfly effect. The longer that this stays uncontrolled and the clubs aren't able to contain it, the worse this could get. So I understand the calls for things to be done. And I don't think there'll be a long break. I do think we could get to a stage soon where there may be like a weekend's worth of fixtures are just postponed to allow all clubs to get a grip and to get a hold of it. But what do you want? Vincent here says great overreaction is what Vincent's got to say to what's being said here. The Spurs game is still on. So you're saying it is on? A viewer's giving me false information. I swear some of you told me it was off. So you're saying it's on. Is it on or is it off? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go and check myself. I'm just going to put in the words Leicester and Tottenham into Twitter, and I'm sure we'll get some sort of official. It's been postponed 10 minutes. 10 minutes ago, Matt Law put it out there. That's why I weren't ready for it. Because it happened just before I was going live, so I was prepping. So Matt Law has said that it's off. So okay, cool. Spurs said it was off. Matt Law's put it out there. Yeah, I've just seen that it's Matt Law that's put that information out there. So that's done. But yeah, is anybody worried? Is anybody concerned? Does anybody think that it needs to? That's the biggest question I've got for you. We've got some that's saying it's a big overreaction, but does some of you feel that it needs to be cancelled or a break being put? Not cancelled, the wrong word. A break or a postponement needs to be in place. What do you think and feel? I want to know now. And as it stands right now, yes, the Chelsea Everton game is looking to move forward. Everton might feel that they don't want this to happen. Everton have already got major issues. Maybe Everton think, look, maybe it's a risk. How are all the players that have tested positive for us and for Chelsea? Are they really positive? Should we not go and get more official testing done before they go to the game? It kind of appears what happened yesterday, because the reason that the game was allowed to be postponed between Burnley and Watford was because the clubs had followed the protocols, the travel protocols. They'd done the testing before they traveled. They got to the ground and got tested again and then showed as positive, which proves that you can literally be negative 6 hours back and then positive in the future. You can be tested negative and 6 hours later be positive. So from a Chelsea point of view, do they want to run the risk of further cross-contamination? And do Everton want to run the risk of themselves maybe picking up a situation? I feel like the Premier League might put a circuit breaker in place maybe as early as this weekend to try and save those Christmas and those Boxing Day fixtures. I don't want football to be taken away. I hope this goes away. I hope that everybody is safe and sound. But the cases are picking up and they don't seem to be deteriorating. If there's a break, at least Conte gets his pre-season, as we are the first team to come out of their club outbreak. I hear you on that. Look, for some teams, having a bit of a break, as long as nobody's seriously ill, won't be a bad thing for them personally. I totally hear you on that. Hi, Terry. I hope everything doesn't shut down. I love the festive football matches. I hear you on that. What you've got to think about this as from the angle of, though, is if they don't get a hold of this, we could lose more football than just a weekend's worth of games. We could lose 3, 4, 5 weeks of football, potentially. So everybody needs to be careful. That's all I'm saying here. Needs to be careful. They should test 12 to 24 hours before training in groups and play matches. Yeah, but they do. They do that. And this is what's happening at the moment. They did it yesterday at Watford. They tested in the morning. They tested the day before when they trained. No issues. They tested in the morning before traveling. No issues. They got to the ground and tested. Issues. And the reason the game was allowed to be postponed is because they'd followed the protocol. So this is my point. Protocols are being followed and these cases are still coming through. My question back is to everyone saying it shouldn't be cancelled. What's your answer? Don't say it shouldn't be cancelled. Give me your answer. I'd love to know why you think it shouldn't be. Do me a favor this morning and smash that like button as well. Big talking point around football at the moment. Should or should there not be a postponement? I'm going to share the link now for you to phone up and for you to have your say in relation to this news. Why did I take the cap locks off? And I wish I prep. Sometimes I look at this and I'm like, why don't I prep this before I went live? I do it every day. Right. That's now pinned. The live comment section is there, so you guys can phone up. You can have your say as well. Young, healthy people don't need lockdown for a mild variant. Too much testing. I suppose what you've got to look at, though, is this, my friend. It's not about the players per se. It's about who they go home to, who they mingle with, who they then mingle with. We're just going to allow 3,000 to 5,000 people involved in football each day to do what they want, irrespective of having it, and then they go back to their worlds and their lives and their families. It's not as though they're all locked up in hotels away from each other. You know, what about the staff and the people that work at the football grounds and everything else? So I think there's a much bigger play at hand than you're thinking about, my friend. Terry, Arsenal in the top 4, and now COVID takes over. Well, they'll remain in top 4 then. You know, that's all on for them. Potentially should have to field a team even if it's under 18s, is what Francisco has said. I understand. Okay, so you're saying that should. So as a Liverpool fan, if you guys can't have to field, if you had to play against whoever tonight, Newcastle, with your under 18s, you wouldn't be frustrated. You wouldn't call for the game to be suspended. Listen, you're a bigger man than me for saying that, my friend, because I wouldn't want my club to have to do that. Yes, as we know, Sherrick, Spurs versus Leicester is postponed. Brentford have 13 players with COVID. And I would love to see the ducks in a row on that. Who have they played? Who have they been in contact with that may have made that happen? When did they last test them and not have these cases? When did they emerge? Like, when did this happen? Terry, which clubs would benefit in the title race if fans are not allowed into the stadium? Twisted, you always ask very difficult questions in terms of things that I'm not sitting here thinking about. So it's very hard for me to answer questions because I don't think about everything. Who would benefit the most? None. I don't think it would make. I think Liverpool might lose a bit of that potency that Anfield has. And that's about it. And that's what they said last year. So I'm just going by what Liverpool fans said last year, but that will probably trigger them in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, as Nick said, 13 players and staff. It's players and staff. Yeah, absolutely. But with respect, it's just as bad in terms of spreading it further because the staff, in some respects, the staff are needed more than some of the players. Like when you think about it, like you can replace it. There's most clubs that, you know, we've got 5 or 6 central midfielders at the club. How many physios they got? You know, how many team doctors they got? How many kitmen they got? You know, if the kitman and the physio and the assistant manager are all missing, that's irreplaceable. Just my view anyway, especially at the smaller clubs. Maybe Man United and the big team, they're 3 or 4 deep in those positions. I ain't really too sure. I never really thought about it. First caller of the day, Jamie Phillips is coming on to give us his take on what's going on at the moment. What are you saying, bro?
Afternoon, Terry.
Yeah, afternoon, mate. What's your take on everything going on at the minute? Do you think there should be a break to these Premier League games? Do you think that they should persevere?
Part of me wants to persevere because I think you're going to have to start treating COVID players like injuries. Now, some teams can have 7 to 8 injured players and it be their best players, but they still got to play games. If you've got 7 or 8 COVID players, but they're all at home isolated and everyone else in the team is available and got negatives, what stops them playing? Now, Spurs apparently had 17 players fit, which is enough to do a match day squad, but they still postponed the game.
Yeah.
Things like that, I think, need to be looked at by the Premier League. If you've got enough players to play a match day game, it shouldn't be postponed. But if there's, obviously extreme cases, obviously you have to postpone the game. Like,
do you know my one challenge to that is this? I understand that part. I don't think is the argument. The argument is this: Watford players tested negative in the morning yesterday. They drove within the protocols or traveled however they traveled to Burnley, arrived, did more tests and tested positive. What happens if you arrive at the stadium? Everyone tests negative. You play the game, you mix with the other team, and then you do tests after the game, and it turns out, oh God, those negative tests earlier were false. I actually do have COVID, and now you've spread that into the other team. That's what's going on here. Is there are Man United players that have tested negative on Monday have tested positive 2 days later they haven't mixed with anybody. They've been in bubbles, they've been in shells, but they were positive the whole time. They just didn't show it. What clubs are saying is until they get a grip of the testing, until they get things down right, they don't want to be mixing with other groups.
No.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. But apparently there's quite a lot of Premier League players, staff, or whatever that are not vaccinated. And if you've got a whole Premier League that's completely vaccinated and boosted, whatever, all the players are completely 100% at their jabs and boosted, I think you should still play games. Because what's the excuse not
Players.
to? I can understand, fans coming into stadiums now have to show COVID passports to get into stadiums and stuff like that. So it's a very tricky one and a difficult one. There's a lot of politics involved in it. Like you said though, with the testing, it's very difficult. Like 6 hours ago, you can be a negative. You get to a game, you're a positive.
And then that could
crazy.
Be, then that could be a false positive in itself.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It is confusing. It really, really is. But I hear your points, mate. Well done for calling in and having your say, Jamie. Top man indeed. Thank you, top man. Terry, injuries are not contagious. That's the difference. Oh, listen, I hear you, man. Don't. I didn't say that. Just put your points and opinions out there. Abdullah's on the show next. What are you saying, Abdullah?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. What do you want to say?
I feel the clubs should actually create those bubbles again. I think it'll probably take a couple of game weeks off for the league to figure this off, because right now, at this time of the year, the games come thick and fast every 2-3 days. So just one game week is not going to do it. But let's say this weekend and the following midweek fixtures are off. The Premier League clubs are able to put in restrictions such as bubbles for the staff and the players, possibly further restricted, attendance in the stadiums as well. And then month by month, you go and see where it is. Because right now, honestly, I don't think the clubs can afford to put off the games for more than a week, because the commercial ramifications to them are just going to be too massive.
Yeah, I believe real strict protocols and bubbles are going to have to take place, as you've said. Players and staff maybe not staying with family. And I know it sounds really harsh. At the same time, very privileged people that, multi-million pound contracts. If someone said to me now, for the next few months, you might have to stay in a hotel and not with your family, but you are getting paid £150,000 per week. I think you've got to stomach that. That's my personal view as a football player or anybody in a job where you're earning that level of money. So I keep hearing a noise. That might be your end. But yeah, I think that's definitely something which that they're going to have to look at. A few people here saying, it's just the tests that are faulty. Well, if the tests are faulty, you can understand them postponing games, because if the tests are faulty, you don't know who's positive and who's negative. And for some people, that can be dangerous. So I totally understand it. Do you see more games being postponed between now and Christmas?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if the government also over there does not really, is not able to put a handle on this, I don't really know how does UK exactly work with regards to this. But, district wise, I'm sure there are different restrictions that are going on. But considering that sport is so vital for the economics of that area as well, I think the government needs to put in certain extra conditions, and they need to take it case by case basis. If they are doing a blanket ban, do a blanket ban, maybe for a week, 8 days, 10 days, whatever it is, for 2 game weeks. But then the regulations that come in, they need to be so strong that moving forward, it probably is again going to be just a case to case basis. I'm hoping more games don't get called off. I'm hoping already the clubs and the Premier League has possibly learned something from this in the last preceding 10 days, I think, is when we've seen 3 cancellations so far. So I'm hoping more don't come around, because hoping that the players, staff, clubs, all involved have already learned something from it.
Yeah, hopefully, and these things are going to be in place. And I think the more official test, I think that it's these flow tests that they need to look at. It's the flow tests that seem to be giving the unfair picture as to whether people have got it or not. So
Right.
they've just got to put something a little bit more substantial in place. Top man, Abdullah, for coming on and having you
Thanks.
say. I really appreciate that, bro. Thank you. Dinesh here says, hi, Terry. Football has to be stopped to get control. Staff working at the ground will be going back to home to affect vulnerable they stay with. I hear what you're saying, Dinesh. Yeah, it could definitely affect vulnerable people they're with as well. And it isn't, you're absolutely right. It isn't just the football players and the staff at the clubs, as in sort of coaching staff and doctors. It is the people at the stadium, stewards and everybody else. And look, that something's got to be done to improve things, because right now it's getting out of control. Winnerpool says, Terry, null and void fans from 2020, where are you? Thesby Avenue is what he's got to say there. Yeah. Sharek says the best thing is to stop all games for 3 weeks, play them through international breaks. Small step for the greater good is what Sharek's got to say. We'll have to find time for these games as well. Sky Sports understands that the Leicester and Spurs game is off. I'm not sure if this has been said or not. Hi, Geordie Toon for life. Yes, it has. Matt Laws also confirmed this as well. I don't think either club, as far as I can see, I don't think either club has officially announced it yet. But yeah, that's pretty much looks like it's going to be happening. The Premier League is trending right now. I'm just taking a look at why it's trending. The Daily Mail reports here that the Premier League should be suspended now. The Brentford boss, Frank, says, with other managers in support after the Bees report 13 cases. I think this is where it's going to become intriguing, is the fact that Premier League managers and clubs are now asking for this to be postponed. They're asking for it to be cancelled for the foreseeable, a circuit breaker to be put in place. And I suppose from their point of view, the way they're looking at it is, if they're, I suppose it's about if they're following protocol. If they're following protocol that the Premier League has set, and the cases are still mounting up, there's nothing they can do but postpone games. The Premier League can't say follow this process or else. We follow the process, it hasn't worked, and then you still get the or else. And I suppose it's one of these things. If your team's suffering with it, you think it's fair, it's postponed. If your team's kind of in a good position right now, it's like, no, you should have to play it. What happens when it's your team? It's the question I've got for you. Where COVID is not going away, and if you continue this, the league will never be complete. There will be a day where players will get COVID positives and play games if there's no symptoms. This is a madness. Do you know, Francis, I totally understand that as well. Until society, and I mean this, and I don't know how to word this any other way, until society is happy and comfortable, and I don't know what makes it happy and comfortable, with people standing in the same room as you and saying, I've got COVID, and nobody panicking and nobody going radio. Until that day, that's not going to happen. I hear you. I agree with you. But right now, you're still out in shops and you cough. I coughed the other day in a shop because I swallowed some chewing gum and I coughed a bit, and still everyone's, you know, that meme of Bill Crosby? That's everyone still. Until that stops, it's not going to happen, my friend. But I totally get you. 110%. I really, really do. Tweet has just come out here that I've got to go and check. Hang on a second. Oh, hang on a sec here. Okay, so Nazir Kinsella has come out, and a lot of you in the comments section when I went live on this video, like, the game ain't going to get called up. But Nazir Kinsella has said Chelsea have had 3 more players test positive on top of Kovacic, who was isolating. Those players are known to have had contact with others in the squad this week. It throws Thomas Tuchel's Everton plans into disarray. The problem for Chelsea is that their calendar is almost no give for match cancellations. They remain in 5 competitions, including the World Club Cup, which they will take very seriously. Chelsea are currently testing their squad, who have been in close contact with the players reported on, so there could be more positives before kickoff tonight. So there could be further outbreaks at Chelsea. I'm telling you now, if there is, it's going to be a thin squad. Everton will call for this game to be postponed. Everton are in terrible form. They don't want to play Chelsea right now. This could legitimately see the game suspended. This could legitimately see the game postponed. There's no doubt. And if more come, and also Chelsea, although your favourites against Everton, you don't know who these players missing are. Let me just paint a picture for Chelsea fans right now. Chelsea fans that say you should play. If, for instance, Mendy's out, Silva's out, Rudiger's out, James is out. We know Cover's out already. Okay. Lukaku's out and Mount's out. Say those players are all missing tonight. Do you want to play the game? Do you want to play the game without those players? That's the question I'm asking for you. It is gearing up like that game may also be cancelled tonight. May also be. There's no indication that it will be yet, but I wouldn't rule it out if I was you. Next on the show, man like Jem, CFC Jem is here with me now. EPL clubs calling for postponements, mate. Looks like we're going back to where we all met.
It's back, isn't it? Oh, yeah, it was where we all met, wasn't it?
This is how we
met. Yeah.
What's your take on it, mate? What's your take on everything going on right now?
Listen, if I've been told 3 different players in the space of 10 minutes from about 10 different people, but I think people just made them up. I've been told Mendy, Kante, and Lukaku. And then I was told James, Jorginho, and someone else. All these different players. And I'm just like, listen, if it's more than 3, we are in no current form, to be wanting to play this game tonight with certain players not being in the team. Like, we haven't got our full squad back as it is anyway. We're struggling in midfield with the lack of the Kantes and the Kovacic's. If we lose James and if we lose Thiago Silva, and like you said, we lose Mendy, and then we find out that after them 3, it's Lukaku, and then we find out it's Rudiger, let's just say, for example, another 2. That's 5 first-team players out of your team. We haven't got the squad unfortunately, at the moment, we haven't got the squad to just replace them players, and we're not in any form to even take that risk and try and get a result. We're in poo form at the moment. I wouldn't want us to risk that. I'd rather us get it cancelled and play it a bit later, Terry. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense from a Chelsea standpoint.
It doesn't. And I think what they've also got to be mindful of is further contamination. You've got to be mindful of, maybe a player or 2 test negative, but they got it, and then that spreads further in the squad.
Exactly.
I think I'm looking at it now, though. If you do end up, if Chelsea have no room in their fixture list this season because of the World Club Championships, if you have to miss a few games because of this, in pursuit of your title, the Premier League, would you give up the World Club Championship?
Yes. Yes, because the Premier League's the bigger trophy out of the 2. It makes it hard, doesn't it? I've always said at the beginning of the season, I don't think Chelsea can win the league. I think we'll challenge, but I still don't think we'll win it. But to give up a couple of games for that tournament, I don't know. I don't think I would like to see that, especially if it's going to push us further away from the top, but also give us issues with 4th place, maybe even getting pushed out of the Champions League. What if we miss a couple of games and all of a sudden we're fighting to try and stay 3rd, 4th? And trying to stay up, do you know what I mean? And can qualify. That's the other thing you have to think as well.
I hear you on that. In further breaking news, I don't know why I'm laughing at this, but I am. The Queen has cancelled the royal family's Christmas plans. The Queen has cancelled the Christmas plans. Look, I feel like, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't get too deep in any of this stuff. I feel like Christmas is going to be allowed to get out the way. And I think there's going to be another national lockdown of sorts. It may have a variant of difference from others, but I feel like there'll be, I think bars and restaurants will be shut. I think there'll be curfews or something along these lines.
We're on a second highest alert right now. There's no way in hell we're coming back down.
What I want to reiterate, that isn't my personal feeling towards it. That's just what I think they're going to do. And that's
I think they should just stop the Premier League, though, Terry. I do, because you look at Spurs, for example. They've got what? Is it 4 games in hand now? They've missed now.
It'd be 3. They've got 3 games in hand, so they've got 3 games in hand now. It's like, when do they fit these all in?
How do they accommodate that going into next season, bearing in mind we've got the World Cup in December and we've got to start a new season as well. It's impossible. They can't do it. I think they should just stop it. Just stop it completely now, and then potentially maybe pick up on it February, January, and then we might be in a position again where, because of next year's timeline, everything going on with the World Cup and that they might, not saying it could happen, they might end up just scrapping it. It might be to the point where we've got no choice based on schedule, based on the new season, based on World Cup.
So where's it based?
What, the World Cup?
No, the World Club Championship.
Oh, the world. No, I'm talking about the World Cup at the end of next year. I'm not talking about the World Club.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind suspending that.
The World Club is, I don't know where it is actually. It's a good point. In sort of United Emirates that way. I think it is.
Yeah, well, they don't really have too many issues, I don't think, there. I don't think they have too many issues there, but I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it certainly feels like we're going back towards. Someone said to me yesterday, we're turning into bears. It's like we get put away for winter to hibernate, and we get to come out again in the summer.
We're losing our freedom, and it's becoming a bit of an issue right now. Not only from a football perspective, but life in general. People are getting, being like, it's not a problem for maybe the likes of us, because we're always on YouTube to doing what we're doing and stuff. It does help, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. It's not nice to see the world going the way it is at the moment, especially when they're asking people to get vaccinated. And then obviously it's still not protecting them, and they're still picking it up and stuff like that. But that's sorry for another day. Isn't it?
No, I hear it, mate. I do feel for people, because like mental health is such an important thing for everybody, and I feel like the world was just starting to go back to more normality. And how I noticed normality was when I'd make the Friday night show. So the first 2 or 3 we did was back in August, and I would leave. This was in the summer, and I'd leave the studio fairly late at night, maybe, not late at night, maybe 8, 9 o'clock. I'd get on the tube, no issues. When I'd leave, sometimes after being in the studio midweek, I'd get on the tube at 5, 6 o'clock, Central Line, get a seat, bruv. Like, that's a madness. Over the past 3 to 4 months, I would say each week, everything's gradually got busier and busier and busier. And it's almost, and I like that from a social element. It's great for the businesses. I feel like it's, and I don't want people being put at risk, but at the same time, like, I would love there to be some more normality. But, they said it 2 years ago, this is the new normal. And 2 years later, that's it. It's a madness to me.
How are you feeling with your vid? Are you feeling a bit better?
I feel, do you know what? In fairness, I feel really good. I don't feel, that's a lie, actually. I don't feel really good. I feel a lot better today. I feel a lot better. But I have to go check James Robertson's tweet. At present, Chelsea's game with Everton is due to go ahead. Positive cases yesterday, but as of yet, not today. So not considered.
They tested the players. Yeah, they tested the players Wednesday, didn't they? So surely they would have had it back around now, wouldn't they? Roughly, to say who has it, who hasn't.
I think, but you know what James says there? This is what he says is very important. I love how as of yet, like there's nothing, but it's if something happens today, it's considered an outbreak, and then it might change. So as long as the test results come back as negative from everybody else in the playing squad, they will push ahead with it. So, and I hope it does go ahead, and I hope it goes ahead, and I hope everyone can play, because I think people do, as long as the players and staff are as safe can be. I'm personally comfortable.
I just hope that the 3 players that are out ain't Mendy, Silva, and Jorginho. Because we can't lose them 3 right now. I tell you, we're lacking it. I tell you, we're in big trouble tonight.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that indeed. I hear that indeed. Listen, Jem, thanks for calling in, mate, and having you say. Really appreciate it, bro. Top man. Thank you. We are talking about the proposed suspension and postponement of the Premier League. A number of Premier League clubs are calling for it to happen. But what do you think? I want your opinions. I want your views. The link is in the live comment section now for you to have your say. If you're watching over on Twitter, thank you. Please retweet. You can join us here at YouTube as well. And everyone watching, please check out the link in our description below and go and follow us on our Twitch account. Once my studio is back open, once our little COVID outbreak goes away, watch-alongs are coming back to the Football Terrace with a vengeance, exclusively on Twitch. So go and follow our Twitch account now. Pav's on the show with me now. What are you saying, Pav?
Hope you're right, firstly. I said a couple of days ago on my Twitter that I feel like there needs to be at least a break, a minimum 2-week break, just to let all these clubs, not just the Premier League, probably like the lower league clubs as well, just to get their stuff in order with this whole COVID protocol, go back to what was happening last year. I know some people say football's the only thing keeps some people's mental state. Um, I understand that, but if football's the only thing, honestly, some of you people need help. If that's the only thing that gets you through life, like I have a different opinion to most because I've seen what my mum had to go through working through the whole pandemic, through care homes, my sister having to work through the whole thing through the NHS. So I'm more of the side where I feel like I'm more, I don't know how to say it, like I don't want people to get ill, basically. So this includes like fans and players. Like some players, you could catch COVID, you might not be well for months. So do you want that? Do you want your club to go through that? Do you want your players to go through that just because you want to watch a game? I feel like we do need a break. I'm not going to moan about if matches get postponed. This is not a dig at YouTubers and not yourself or others. I'm just saying in general. I see some YouTubers crying about why should matches get called off. I think you need to look past it all and just. I think the whole thing needs a break, mate. To be honest, I understand people want to watch the game and whatnot, but this new variant ain't good, and we know with the government and stuff, like there's a whole thing about them screwing over the general public anyway. But yeah, I just honestly think we need a break, just for the players as well, because you don't really want to watch your team when half your team's out or certain players are out, and then using that excuse that we didn't have the players, but you also wanted to watch the game. I think ideally the Premier League needs to take some sort of liability for having all these extra like tournaments, and like they should have actually saw something like this coming. Did we really need the Carabao Cup? We could have gone into the league just with the Premier League and the FA Cup, knowing that we've got the World Cup next year. And how many weeks do these players actually get off throughout the season? I don't even think we were going to have a winter break this year because of what happened last year. Like, how much strain do we put on these players just because the Premier League want to make money off of them? The other companies want to make money, broadcasting want to make their money, fans want demand, constantly want to watch football. But how much do we actually care about the amount of strain that goes onto these players? If they catch COVID or get ill, and we just expect them to come back and go back to what they were doing.
I hear you, Pav, and I think this is where like, there's always going to be conjecture in these opinions from what people want, and I get it. Nazir Kinsella has just come out and tweeted that Chelsea Everton is still going ahead as it stands. The situation may evolve further, but so far it's stable. I think what everyone is like clamoring for news that like kind of proves their point to a degree. What Kinsella is saying to me and what I'm hearing is, yep, there's been 3 or 4 positive cases. They're isolated from the group. If no one else in the group has got it, then I'm more than happy for, like, personally, my personal view is I'm cool with that going ahead. But as he says, it could evolve further if these tests they're doing now or before the game kicks off this evening, because if further tests always happen before the game, if anybody else tests positive between now and the game kicking off, it's highly likely to be suspended because that positive person has been mixing today with the match day squad. I kind of feel like that's what people have got to understand here. So that's why it's under threat, because the people that have tested positive have been mixing in the last few days with this squad. They've now got to test the squad again, and let's see what happens. In terms of the wider impacts, if, squads keep getting these outbreaks, then maybe there will need to be a break, because the health and safety of people is always going to come before playing the actual football matches, or it should do towards a degree. But we know the Premier League don't really want to cancel these things either.
It's all about getting into their special bubbles, though, isn't it? Because I know, like, they're human beings, but you're also in a contract where you're demanded to play games, and you're on a lot of money, but then the club also need to prepare for this sort of stuff, get the bubbles going. I know it might mean you might not get to see all your family and friends, but the way that the contracts are, like the way the clubs are, like I said, the whole football pyramid, you're expected to play all this stuff, and it's a sacrifice these players are going to have to make. But it's up to, like, the higher boards, like we're just fans at the end of the day. Like obviously, I've just said I gave my opinion. You've got your own opinion. I'm not gonna disregard other people's opinion about it because this whole COVID thing, it's a bit of a mess. But it is what it is,
I hear
mate.
you, Pav. I hear you, Pav. Thanks for coming on, mate,
No
and
worries,
having your
man.
say. Really appreciate it, mate. Top man. Thank you. We're gonna get Francis on the show next. Regular super chatter of the terrace. Vincent here says, "Stop being afraid. It's not about health and safety. Outside space where COVID least spreads." Chelsea can't afford for games to be cancelled because they are in 5 competitions. It's mad, is what Andre's got to say. A long time no see, Andre. Hope you're well, my friend. Francis is on the show with me now. What's your take on everything, Francis?
Terry, see, COVID is not going away, and as much as we want to pretend about the reality of this issue, if we're ever going to have a society, if we're ever going to have football, we're all football fans, love going to games, watching games here in Australia, late up at night, just watching soccer. We've got to learn to find a way. The last speaker was talking about postponing the games, calling off for 2 weeks. When does it end? There's going to be outbreaks in January. Some players are going to get COVID in February. Some players are going to get COVID in March. Players have got families. Their kids go to school. Their wives go to church or wherever. Like, things happen. Like, we can't end COVID. So the Premier League has got to make a decision here. What's the threshold? When does a game get called off? Do we have 5 players and say, okay, 5 first-team players and that's it? Do we have 7 first-team players and that's it? But we can't keep running round circles around, okay, Leicester versus Spurs is going to be called off just randomly. Like, something has got to give. Something is going to give. If we're ever going to have football again, Terry, and I'm sorry to say this, the World Cup is coming, African Cup of Nations, busy Christmas period. What do you think the broadcasters are going to say to the Premier League, for example? Amazon Prime is showing the Premier League for the Christmas period. They bought the right to show the Premier League for that time because they have a specific reason to promote Amazon sales for the Boxing Day sales. They didn't buy the right to show the Premier League just because they want to show one game of Premier League because to suddenly become a sport channel. They bought it for a specific marketing purpose. And if you don't show the game on that day, they'll get their money back. The clubs then will have to give back some money that they've received from the Premiership. So, like,
I understand the financial ramifications of not playing these games. I totally get that, mate. And I also get your point as well. And this is where I'm someone that likes clarity. So, but I don't know when what you're asking for is going to come into play. I don't know what people are waiting for. Maybe it's the whole world to be vaccinated and then they're happy for us to do whatever with it, irrespective of what it does or doesn't protect you against. I don't know because I'm not educated enough on it, but I hear you. I do fear that. As you say, you put a breaker in now, but then there's more outbreaks in Feb, then there's more in like when is enough where people just go, right, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question, and I'm asking the same question as you. I want to know what those thresholds are as well. I really do.
Would you cancel all the other tournaments apart from the Premier League just for the Premier League to be completed?
Sorry, say that again.
Would you say no FA Cups, no Carabao Cups? We're just going to use all those timetables for the Premier League. Is that an option?
Sorry, say that again. I didn't understand. Say it again. Sorry.
Can they cancel the FA Cup, all the FA Cup schedules, all the League Cup, Carabao Cups, any other cups
to get the Premier League finished?
To get the Premier League finished,
they could, yes, they can. That would have the same ramifications as with sponsors, etc. But obviously, the cost of that would be a lot smaller. But remember, the FA and the Premier League are not the same governing body, although they work together quite closely. So that could indeed happen. So yes, theoretically it could. Listen,
Thanks,
top man,
Derek.
top man,
Thanks
coming on
very
and having
much.
your show. Thank you very much
Not a
indeed.
problem. Have a good one.
Thank
Yep.
you. Simon Phillips has tweeted saying Chelsea's Premier League match with Everton remains on. A small number of Chelsea players returned positive COVID tests yesterday, but those were not repeated today, which is good. So it is not classed as an outbreak. Those who tested positive are isolating. So very, I've retweeted that. Very positive news there indeed. We'll see how this one transpires over the next few hours, whether anything else comes out of it. Feels like there's a lot of pressure being put on teams to have to cancel these games as well. So we'll see. And on the Premier League, more so to cancel some of these games. So we'll see what kind of comes out of this. As I've said already, I hope this goes ahead. A lot of Premier League clubs are calling for postponements. There's a lot of people calling for this game to be cancelled today, outside of the Chelsea bubble, that is. But we'll see what happens. We're back later on today with some transfer news for you, match reactions later on tonight as well. Do me a favor before you go anywhere and smash that like and share button. Go check out our Twitch account as well. The link for that is in the description below. If you want to watch our watch-alongs in our studio, you have to watch them on Twitch. So go follow over there, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.